And I'm Mehta, CEO of Gainsight, and very excited to talk to you about customer success and why it's so important in the new economy. And Shamli, do you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm honored to be here. And Shamli, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm very excited to just share some of the best practices that we've seen on how companies are building customer success into their business from day one, and what they think about, what I wish I could have thought about from the beginning. And many of you know, so I'm the CEO of Gainsight, and running Gainsight, we've been really fortunate to see the growth of this customer success concept from early days in 2013 to now customer success being a kind of core part of every SaaS company. So I'm very excited that the SaaS Insider Conference invited us to speak. Some Gainsters have been to this conference before, and it's a great way for all of you to learn and hopefully get connected with each other as well. So what I'm going to do is share a little bit of kind of our story of customer success, and then what we're seeing in terms of best practices in the industry. And then we'll have time for some questions and answers at the end. But I can't start any of that without stepping away from customer success for 1 minute and just obviously sending a big hug and empathy and understanding to everyone who's dealing with a lot of more important things in life than software or customer success right now. I'm sure many of you watching are dealing with a lot of complexity and challenges with family and health and COVID and everything else. So we're thinking of you all. Some of you may know Gainsight was founded in Hyderabad, India. So about 500 of our 750 employees are in India, between Hyderabad and Bangalore. So we ourselves are, in the throes of this crisis, and so we're thinking about a lot, and obviously always eager to hear ways we can help. So thank you, and sending you our thoughts. So we'll talk today about customer success. I'll talk a little bit about kind of how I got so passionate about customer success. Have I spent 8 years of my life on this? And then we'll talk a little bit about why it's become existential, like fundamental to every business. And then what's the kind of modern playbook? What can companies do today to really be great at it from early days, from the beginning? If you're starting a new company, how do you build it in from the beginning? So we'll talk about what that means for maybe your business, and also maybe what that means for all of us in terms of building better businesses, building better companies, building a better economy and a better world. So to start, let me talk about why I am so passionate about this, because if you followed me before, I've had maybe 100,000 tweets about customer success and a similar number of LinkedIn posts, and I've spoken at thousands of events, and it's been 8 years, and I love it. It's just my life. And there's some interesting kind of backstory, if you go back to my childhood, that sort of led me to this point in a very kind of funny, serendipitous way. So I was a very nerdy kid. This is not me, but it easily could be. This is actually a kid from a TV show in America, a very nerdy kid from a TV show. And this next photo is actually me. Me as sort of maybe a 10-year-old kid growing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My dad and mom both grew up in India and moved to America in the late 60s, early 70s. So long time ago. That's me all dressed up in a suit because I was being brought by my dad to his office with my brother in the middle, the three of us, to go see my dad's office. And in America, they have, I don't know if it's popular in India, there's this thing called Take Your Kid to Work Day. And so, I was going with my dad to work, and I was very excited. And I have this memory of going to my dad's office. My dad worked in technology. He actually initially worked in some big companies. Then he started his own company. Actually, fun fact that my dad was one of Wipro's first clients in the 1980s. So long time ago. And my dad basically was around technology his whole career. And I remember my dad taking me to his office when I was a little kid, and my dad saying that in business, the only two jobs that matter are the people that build the products and the people that sell them. And once you've sold a customer, they're kind of stuck. And I remember my dad telling me that, and me thinking, okay, well, that's interesting. This is many, many years ago. But then realizing as I got into my own career that for a long time, this has really been true. My dad's been totally right. Most of the company's focus was always on either engineering products or selling them, right? And after the sale, you wanted to support the customer if they had a problem, but otherwise it was up to the customer. And obviously that all changed, as we'll talk about, with the cloud. And many of you are pioneers in the cloud businesses. I personally went through this experience myself because I started my career in a company that was pre-cloud. I was at Symantec. Actually, Symantec had bought a company called Veritas. We had a big office in Pune, and Veritas made software for like backing up servers. It was all installed behind, firewalls on servers. And so our software was it was about building it and selling it. My dad was right. And when I was a product manager and eventually a general manager at Veritas and Symantec, I spent most of my time on building and selling products. But then I went to run my first cloud business. I went to be CEO of a company called Live Office. Live Office was run a business that was 100% in the cloud. We basically helped companies archive their communications for legal purposes. So basically keep a copy of all your emails and instant messages and things like that. But we did it all in the cloud, and it was all kind of month-to-month type pricing. So a customer could leave anytime they wanted. And that was the first time I learned that once your customers have power, everything shifts about your job as a CEO. In fact, in that job, I spent more time with our head of customer success than I did our head of sales or head of product. This is our head of customer success from my last company, Steve Wolf. And I spent so much time with him because customer success was so important. Now, we didn't call it customer success back then. We called it client services, customer support, account management, but it was the kind of same core idea. And so in running my last company, I realized, gosh, everything is changing in these subscription businesses. It's not just about building a product and selling it like my dad said. You still have to do those things, but now you have to actually make that customer successful too. And now the other funny thing is in my last company, the way we managed our customers was we got in a room and we put up a big spreadsheet that was kind of color-coded red, yellow, green. Some of you might have a Google sheet like this today, right? And Gainsight, our mission, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but our mission is to get people out of spreadsheets and into scalable systems to help them scale their customer success efforts, make their customers more successful, improve renewal rates, drive upsell, and make their customers bigger advocates. So, that whole story kind of set me up for what I'm doing today, which is Gainsight, and it's about customer success. And many of you know that in running Gainsight, we haven't focused just on our technology, but we really spent a lot of time, as the intro said, focusing on creating this category of customer success and educating people on, what is customer success? Why do you need to do it? And most importantly, how do you do it well? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We've written 3 books on customer success. They've become quite popular. The latest one is in the frontier. And I'm really, really excited about just kind of expanding the knowledge. And that's why I'm here doing this presentation. We also try to expand the knowledge in our own events. One event I'd encourage you to check out is June 9th and 10th. It's called Pulse Everywhere. And it's basically the annual event for customer success professionals and executives to come together and learn from each other. The chart here shows you the number of people at this event every year. Obviously, early on it was in person, now it's digital. And you can see that it's just exploded, which shows you how big of a deal customer success has become in business. So that's a little bit about just how I got here and who Gainsight is. Let's talk about why customer success is showing up everywhere in every type of industry. At Gainsight, we've seen this firsthand because customer success kind of tracks who our customers are. We work with, SaaS companies, we work with startups, we work with the big public companies like LinkedIn and Workday and, Box and Dropbox. We work with the big traditional companies like Adobe and Cisco and VMware and Palo Alto Networks, and increasingly working with very global companies throughout Europe and Asia. And, I'm proud to say we now have some customers based in India as well. So very excited to work with companies throughout the world and really bring this customer success mission to life. The reason it's coming to life, one of the core reasons, is because all of our expectations as consumers have changed, right? We all have an incredible experience now in our consumer lives whether it's ordering kind of on-demand food or using on-demand transportation or using Netflix, right? Apple products. We have this amazing ability to get what we want when we want it as consumers. Things have gotten a lot better in the last 10 years. But at work, many, many companies don't have that same experience for their employees, right? They use technology at work, and there's a big gap. McKinsey has a study where they said that there's a gap of 15, 20, 25, 30% between the experience we get at work and the experience we have at home. And so the truth is the B2B companies, which I think most of you are, need to raise our game. We need to get much better at the experience for our customers. And that's part of why customer success is so important. But from a company perspective, like for all of you from a business perspective, it's not just about that. It's about the fact that your metrics now depend on not just getting customers and building products, but also these 6 metrics that companies look at for customer success. Can I retain my customers? Obviously, that's critical. In the SaaS model, you spend so much money getting new customers. If you don't retain them, you'll never make any money. Can I get them to adopt my products and services so that over time they become sticky, meaning it's hard for them to want to switch? Can I better understand my customers, get visibility into them so we always understand what's happening with them? Can I more efficiently scale my business so I don't have to hire a ton of customer success managers? I can do a lot of automation. Can I deliver a great experience for our customers, right? Some people measure net promoter score so that my customers are big advocates working with us. And then finally, can I actually not only just keep my customers, but actually grow them by delivering great value for them? Now, from a client perspective, your clients don't care about any of that. They don't care if you have a good retention rate or what your adoption is. We'd argue they care about 2 core things. And we put this equation up partially because I'm very nerdy. You might see an Einstein poster in my background. I love equations. And we put this equation up because we think there's 2 aspects of customer success from a customer point of view. Number 1, they want to get the outcome they're looking for. They didn't just buy your technology just to have fun. They're trying to do something. They're trying to generate leads for their business, hire more people, make their customers happier. That's called customer outcome, CO. But they want to do it with a great experience. They want to have a good experience working with you on the phone, in support, when they're buying new stuff. They want a good experience. So customer success is the combination of getting your customers to the outcomes they're looking for and doing it with great experiences. Now, the reason we lay this out is sometimes when people think about customer success, they think of the consumer world where when you're ordering a car on Ola Cabs or you're ordering, kind of on-demand food delivery, in those situations, it's just about your experience, right? It's just about what you think as an individual. But when a business buys from you, that business is looking for an outcome. It's not just buying to have fun, right? And so there's a big difference, and that's why the outcome matters so much. But what happens is, in most companies, nobody is focused on the outcome, right? You have a marketing team whose job is maybe do webinars or do events or put out advertising to get more leads, right? And you have a sales team whose job is, okay, take those leads and close them into customers. And you might have an implementation team or services team, and their job is to just finish the project. You might have a support team, and their job is to get a ticket in from, Freshdesk or Zendesk or whatever, and then close it out. You might have a product team whose job is to take the items that are in Jira and ship those features. You might have a finance team that takes all those, billings and charge B or whatever, and then charge the customer, right? And everyone's doing their job, but nobody's thinking about the customer outcome and experience. That's why customer success was created, because we need somebody to think of end to end about that customer's desired outcome and experience. And so the way people look at customer success is it's not about the functions, it's about the journey. It's about this journey. If you look at the middle of the chart, that journey from the client sale to being onboarded to starting to use your product to maybe expanding and maybe becoming an advocate. And then it's about noticing what's happening along the way. On the top, it's all those things that you plan. There's a new release. You send them a newsletter. You go through onboarding, right? But on the bottom are the things you could never plan for. There was an outage of your technology, right? There was a support issue. The person you sold to left the company. All those things that just happened. And customer success is about watching all those things that are happening and constantly helping the client get to the outcome and the experience they're looking for. That's what we're all doing together, right? And it's not just about a team, a CSM team. It's about the fact that your whole company's job is to take the client through this journey. But the challenge is it's hard to do that when you have a lot of customers, right? When you have big customers, it's a little easier because you can kind of, put a lot of people on those customers and make sure they're happy. But many of you have a high volume of customers. And so it's not just about throwing people at it. And we think there's 3 flavors of customer success. The high touch kind of customer success for your biggest clients might be much more about throwing people at it. But then you've got those kind of mid-sized clients, right? Where we call it just-in-time customer success. You're looking at everything that's happening. You're noticing maybe when they're about to get unhappy, and right before they decide something, you're reaching out to them. And then what we call tech touch customer success, which is saying, I'm going to start with the digital experience first. That might be automated emails, in-product communications, might be a customer support portal, might be a chat bot. What am I doing to provide a digital experience first and then have human beings be involved if the digital experience isn't working? So these three flavors of customer success are helping navigate your client on that journey to outcomes and experiences. Okay, that's great, kind of high level. Let's talk about what the best companies are doing right now based on the most modern kind of version of customer success. And it really comes down to this concept, some of you may know, called net dollar retention or net retention rate, depending on kind of the currency. And this idea is basically that customer success isn't just about preventing bad things from happening. It's about if you get your client to the outcome and experience they're looking for, they're going to spend more money. And if they spend more money, it's not just about preventing churn, it's about driving expansion. And some people call that net retention. And the basic idea of net retention, which I'm going to explain here in a second, is that we want to measure the total kind of lifetime value of that client. So net retention is looking at the revenue at the beginning of a period for a set of clients, adding in whatever additional upgrades, additional products they added in, taking out any downgrades they had, and also taking out any of the churn revenue. And so this metric ends up being able to be much more than 100%. So your customers might have been spending, let's say, $100,000, or we can in rupees or any other currency, at the beginning of the quarter, and now at the end of the quarter, they're spending $110,000, $120,000. And so the question is, how do your customers grow or shrink as time moves on? And net dollar retention is an interesting metric because it correlates very nicely with enterprise valuation. So the chart here on the right looks at publicly traded cloud companies. The vertical axis is like their multiple, meaning the value of the company divided by the sales. And that's really a kind of an indication of how valuable people think companies are. The horizontal axis is their net retention rate. Great. So now you look at these two and you can see the companies with high net retention rates tend to have high valuations. Zoom, Twilio, Slack before they got acquired, et cetera. And some of you might follow Dave Kellogg online. He's an incredible SaaS blogger. If you don't, you should check out kellblog.com. And he said in his predictions for the year, net dollar retention becomes the top SaaS metric, driving companies towards consumption-based pricing and expansion-oriented contracts. And so his point is, it's not just about playing defense and watching out for churn. It's about how do we get customers to the outcomes and experiences they're looking for so they grow with us. And that's the big trend for this year. So customer success 2.0, meaning the modern version, is about net dollar retention. In fact, McKinsey wrote a great paper on this. McKinsey is a big consulting firm, and it was about how customer success should be the new growth engine in your company. If you Google this, you should check it out. It's a very good article. So what does that mean for you? What best practices could we recommend to optimize net dollar retention? Well, good news is we meet a lot of companies. And so we surveyed customer success leaders in the beginning of the year and said, what are you doing this year to drive net dollar retention and net retention rate? What are the things you're doing? And we came up with these strategies in order. I'm not going to read them on this chart. You can, if you need to take a screenshot, you can. And I'm going to go through each of these quickly so you understand what are the best companies doing to drive net retention this year. And these ideas, most of them apply even if you're a small startup. So number one, value-based selling and delivery. The idea here is if you're selling something to a customer, you're selling a promise. You're saying, I'm going to help you make more money. I'm going to help you make your employees happier. I'm going to help you support your customers better, right? And there's this handoff that happens from sales to onboarding or professional services and then to maybe customer success. There's this kind of workflow that happens in your company. But for a lot of companies, that knowledge about why the client bought and what their desired outcomes are is lost. And lots of times you get on the call with that client and say, hey, so what are your goals? And the client says, I don't know. My boss just told me to implement the software, because they weren't even involved in the sales conversations. And so what we recommend is really creating a great handoff from your pre-sales, sales engineers, salespeople, to your customer success people around what the desired outcomes are. This is how we do it at Gainsight. So we have a set of desired outcomes when people buy Gainsight that you see them on the left there, right? And there's a set of things that we do to help drive those outcomes. For example, reduce churn, drive efficiency. And so we'll capture those goals. Let's say the client wanted to improve their retention rate from 86% to 93%. We capture all that in the sales process in our CRM, which in our case is Salesforce. And then that automatically gets handed off to our customer success team. Of course, they use Gainsight, so no surprise there. But we automatically create a success plan, meaning a set of strategies to achieve those goals. Now, you don't need technology if you're a little startup, but you can still do the exact same thing. You can still say, what are we going to do to capture those goals and really make sure we understand them before we close the deal, and then hand them off to customer success. Number 2, really important one, especially if you're a young company. Product adoption is everything, right? It's so important. And we all know that. And especially as your products get more competitive, if people aren't really using your product well and they're just using the basic features, they'll go to something else that's cheaper, right? Or simpler or whatever. And so we think there's a lot of ways to drive scalable adoption, whether it's automated emails, to customers, showing them what features they're using, which ones they aren't using. We do that at Gainsight. It's extremely effective. Or it's asking for feedback in the application to understand what's preventing adoption. Or it's giving them like little onboarding guides and videos in the app to teach them about new releases. But it's also analyzing all the data with your product team to look at, retention cohorts, for a given feature, how many people tried it on week 1, and then 10 weeks later, how many of them are still using it. And so really getting very data driven. And you probably know that all of the consumer apps do all this already, right? Facebook does all of this and much more, right? To understand, whether we use WhatsApp or not and how to get us to send more messages. And so how do we do that same thing in the B2B world? So that's the second idea. And by the way, like Gainsight, we do a lot of this ourselves because we have a technology that's all about in-app analytics and in-app engagement called Gainsight PX. So we've become kind of an expert in this area as well. Third thing, so we all know one of the most critical parts of customer success is onboarding, right? It's that first impression after the sale. And companies are trying to really invest in onboarding, automating some of the communications, like a welcome email. You can see the welcome email we send our clients. Having a guide in the first time a user logs into your app to walk them through what's happening, right? And in some cases, actually having a whole journey for onboarding. On the right, you can see we use our own technology to kind of nurture that client through onboarding. If they haven't taken the right steps, sending them more messages, sending them training information, et cetera, et cetera. Number 4, one of the biggest values of customer success is you're talking to those customers every day and you're seeing the roadblocks and walls they're running into. You shouldn't just keep that knowledge to yourself. You need to get that to your product team, right? And so this funny GIF on the left captures the experience for a lot of customers. At Gainsight, we use our own technology to capture the blockers that the CSM team identifies that are preventing customers from getting value, and then handing those to their product team, who then has a requirement to come back on an estimated date for shipment or say they can't do it. Number 5, we think that for your large clients, you need to be really, really proactive, right? You all know that. And so, some of you probably know there's this concept of health scoring, measuring the different factors that make for a healthy client. In Gainsight, of course, we use our own technology. So we look at things like deployment. Is a client deployed with the technology? Are they engaged with our team? Are they adopting the product? Are they seeing ROI? We call that the DEAR score: deployment, engagement, adoption, and ROI. And then we look at it for our large customers and every week, and we're very, very proactive about it as a management team. We also, with our large customers, try to be what people call multi-threaded, which means you never want to get to the point where you have a big customer and there's like one person that you work with. Because what if that person leaves? What if they get sick? What if they move to a different job? You really need to think about multi-threading. And so what we do at Gainsight is we try to understand who are the stakeholders. In the center, you can see we build a map of who the people are in our customer. Who do we know? We build what we call stakeholder alignment, which means who at Gainsight is mapped to somebody at the client. So that I might be mapped to the CEO of the client. And then somebody else might be mapped to the CRO. And then somebody else might be mapped to the head of customer success, right? And then we actually measure how engaged we are with this client. Do we have the right number of connections? Which clients? On the right, you can see a report that comes out of clients where we don't have enough connections with them. So being very good about the relationship side of this. Number 6, some of you probably have renewals. I know some of you probably have an automated auto renewal. But if you have renewals, being really, really good about being data driven about the renewal management, being able to assess risk and forecast renewals well. As you scale, it becomes really important. Number 7, customer success teams shouldn't operate in a silo. It's important to work with sales. And so a lot of our clients are doing collaborative planning with sales, meaning they build a joint plan to make this client successful and to get them to spend more money. A joint account and success plan. And also taking the people in the account on the right there and then dividing up which one should the salespeople cover? Which one should the customer success people cover? The end result of all of this is we've seen consistently, this is a data set that we have from our customers, that companies that get better at this customer success maturity process improve their net retention rate very, very consistently. This is a big, big deal in the industry. And so if you want to improve net retention, implement some of the strategies that we talked about. And some of you know, we do some lot of thought leadership. And one of the things we're doing this year is we call Net Retention Rate TV. We had our first episode in March with Dave Kellogg. We have another one coming up next week with Tomas Tungas from Redpoint Ventures, talking about net retention and customer success and what these best practices look like. But I want to close out just talking about a little bit about how this might be more than just kind of customer success and retention, a little bit more than that from what I've seen. Because I think customer success is really part of building better businesses. At the end of the day, what we've seen in the last year is businesses are nothing if our human beings behind those businesses aren't safe and healthy and happy, right? That's what businesses are here for us as human beings. But sometimes we lose sight of that when we're in our jobs day to day. And I'll tell you a little story with my mom and dad. So you saw my dad's photo a long time ago. Now this is him. My dad's 75, my mom's 72. And obviously I love them dearly. They're very fortunate they're still around and live near us. And I went on took them out to dinner a few years ago. And I remember telling my mom and dad that how much I love science. So outside of work, some of you saw I have an Einstein poster behind me. I love science. I was always into science as a kid. And my mom actually studied physics at IIT when she was a kid, long time ago. But she never got to go into science. There weren't as many opportunities back then. And so she always kind of wanted me to go in science. And she knows I read a lot. I still read about, quantum physics and a lot of stuff like that. And my mom, just a couple of years ago, we're going to dinner and she says, Nick, it's too bad you didn't go into science because you could have really done something with your life. And I don't know if there's a better Indian American parental expectation story than that one. If there is, I'd love to hear it. And my dad said, he actually jumped in and said, no, Mina, he still has time to do something with his life. It's not too late. So my dad thought he was helping. But then my mom said, no, it's too late, but maybe his kids can do something with their lives. And so it got me thinking, like, what is the point of what I do? Because at the end of the day, we're selling software, right? We're not curing COVID. We're not, AstraZeneca or Pfizer, all these other great companies that are trying to solve, a critical human issue, right? But we do have something that's special at Gainsight and in customer success. And we kind of thought about the concept some of you might have seen called Start With Why. It's a great TED Talk if you haven't seen it from Simon Sinek. It's phenomenal. You should definitely watch it. And Start With Why is this idea that the best companies aren't about what they do, they're about why they do it. And at Gainsight, we've always been about people. We've always been about human beings. We have a very human-centric set of values, the golden rule, which means treat people the way you want to be treated. Success for all, which is about making sure our company drives success for all of our stakeholders, our customers, our employees, their families, not just our shareholders. Childlike joy, people love that one, which means bring the kid in you to work every day. Shoshin, which is a Japanese word for beginner's mind. And then stay thirsty, my friends, which is all about ambition. And so at Gainsight, we've always been this very human-centric company, very kind of authentic company about who we are. And so what we realized is while a lot of companies say that it's not personal, it's just business. That's actually a famous quote. If some of you are movie buffs, there's a movie called The Godfather. And there's this quote, it's not personal, it's just business. We believe the opposite, that business is fundamentally personal. It's just about human beings. And so in our company, we said that our purpose, the answer to my mom about why I am doing something with my life, is to be living proof you can win in business while being human first. The idea that we can all have successful companies, but also still treat our employees well and treat our customers well and treat them all as human beings, just like we would like to be treated, right? And the truth is, in the last year and a half, I feel like a lot of companies have gotten this message because we've gone through so much tragedy and loss. And a lot of organizations have said, how can I help? It's not just about my bottom line. How can I help? And so I have been talking a lot about how the world needs human first leaders that are realizing that businesses are here to support human beings. And customer success is all about having a human first relationship with your customer. If you've seen it, I started a series on LinkedIn Live to interview CEOs about how they lead from a human first perspective. And so that's been really inspiring to me. And I think that if you kind of close out, I feel like now is the time. It's the time for customer success because everyone's moving to the cloud. Our customers have power. It's the time. But it's more importantly, the time for human first. When we see so much tragedy happening in the world, we need businesses to realize that they're here to serve human beings. And at Gainsight, obviously there's the tragedies in India are so vast. It feels like, no matter what you do, it's a drop in the ocean, but we are trying to do our part, supporting our teammates and also supporting a number of causes in terms of helping around oxygen and ventilators and hospital beds and so on. So obviously we all want to have more ideas. So if you have more ideas on what we can be doing to help, I'd love to hear them. And then we have our customer success books if you want to keep learning about customer success. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I believe we have time for maybe 5 minutes of Q&A. Thank you so much.
One of the questions that we got is learning from the Holy Grail types. So what are the 3 metrics that you measure at Gainsight and why?
Yeah. So we measure, gross retention / net retention, but that's not, everyone does that. The things that we measure that I think are more interesting are what we call verified outcomes. And that's the percent of customers that have gotten a provable outcome from Gainsight, meaning they would say, okay, Gainsight reduced my churn or Gainsight improved my scalability. And so we measure that alongside our retention. So we have retention, verified outcomes. And then the other one that's interesting is we measure not just total adoption, but what we call breadth of adoption, meaning what percent of customers are using the product really broadly, meaning a lot of features versus just using one feature.
Got it. Right. The other question is, you've been in customer success for the last decade.
Yep.
You know it in and out. If there is something that you would have done differently, something like that you could have learned from your mistake, what would it be? Or what would be the top 3 factors that you would change?
So many. Oh my gosh. Okay. One of them would be, I think this human first concept, like early on, people thought, okay, it's just about the data. It's about analytics. The reality is it's about human beings. So I think earlier on, focusing on the people, tracking the people in your customer, understanding who they are, that area is so robust. We've done a lot on it. I wish we'd done it sooner. Number 2 is people kind of threw a lot of manual processes at this problem. And I think this concept of tech touch, we've invested a lot in it. That's an area that I think the industry, we would have better served to have done more tech touch earlier in the process than we did. And then finally, customer success can't be a silo. It can't just be a team on its own. And so when we think about our software or when you think about your customer success team, it's about getting the whole company rallied around customer success, not just this individual team.
Got it. And there's a really interesting question over here. So Raghav here describes multi-threading as a fast and furious saga, something you think that you're done, but the new one pops up.
Yeah. I love that, by the way. That's funny. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, thank you, Raghav. But his original question is, how many threads do you think is too much? And have you had any scenario that has gotten out of hand?
Yeah, well, I think there's no too much. The only issue is practically how many you can manage. And also, there's some kind of human dynamic where if you have too many, then the person that brought you in might feel maybe a little hurt because you're kind of working with too many people. So sometimes they want you to just work with them. That's a real challenge. I think the conventional wisdom is that for your larger accounts, having at least 3 good relationships is a good idea. Because then you have a little bit more of a backup, And it's helpful to have them be in different organizations. For example, with Gainsight, it's good to have a relationship for us in customer success, obviously, but then maybe one in IT or one in sales, right? So we have different lenses on it. All those relationships don't need to be like weekly meetings or quarterly meetings. I'd argue that a lot of the best relationships are ones where you can WhatsApp message them or text message or whatever, where you have that kind of very casual relationship. That's where it's really strong.
Got it. I think we can take two more questions.
Right.
One of the questions is, do you think will AI disrupt the human touch? Because
AI disrupt the human touch? AI?
Yeah.
I think AI will not. No, I don't think we're nowhere close to that. I think what will happen instead is AI is going to augment the human touch by helping us focus on things that work and also get the right kind of useful guidance to customers. So no, I don't, not anytime soon at all. It's not going to disrupt the human touch.
Okay. I think too many people have been thinking about humans versus AI apocalypse.
People say it's always either or, right? Humans or machine. It's not, the best concept is kind of humans and machine together.
Yeah. And the last question that we are taking for today is, how do you break the silos? Because customer success is a team that needs to work with multiple functions, right? And especially at the stage when we are remote, how do you align all the goals of all the teams that are present here?
I'll give you three very practical, or for me, practical ideas. Number one, look at all the metrics that every other team has and make sure one of those metrics is a customer-centric metric. It could be product team signing up for a net promoter score. It could be the sales team having a survey about how the sales experience was, but they should have one metric on each of their scorecards that's tied to customer success. That's the first point. Second point, get everyone in the company to hear the stories in the customer's voice. It's very different when you go to a salesperson or a product person and say, let me tell you about this customer, versus them hearing it directly. And that's where I think one thing I'd highly recommend is using kind of some of the call recording software out there. There's a lot of different technologies, Gong, Chorus, there's probably other ones as well. And those are really good because you can take a recording and then share it internally. It's really, really helpful. So that's number two. Number three, really thinking about in the kind of rhythm of your weekly cadence for your company. Maybe you have an all hands or you have a weekly meeting. Maybe you have a company like offsite. How do you incorporate that customer voice into that meeting every single time?
Awesome. Those, I think, will definitely be useful in most of the companies. But anyways, we have arrived at the end of the session. Nick, thank you once again for being here. To all the audience, Nick is the CEO of Gainsight, and he's the one who created the customer success function as you see today. Right. If you have any questions, I know there are a lot of questions coming in. Just make sure you tweet it to Nick, tagging SaaS Insider, and I think that will be a great way of engagement.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.